make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there. The most infuriating thing, too, is when they're like, oh, you're not a real baseball fan if you don't like this. And it's like, I don't understand. Like, I want to see more baseball action. That's what I want to see.
All right, thanks for tuning back to the Whistlethrowers podcast. This is Jack Mubarak, joined by
Jack Slaymaker.
And Aiden Tiksinski.
So, spring training just started up for MLB, and there's a lot to talk about. There's been a huge change coming in this season with Pitch Clock, and everyone seemed to has an opinion on it. Aiden told me specifically he wanted to open up with this, so I'll give him the floor right now.
To start with the Pitch Clock, it's a controversial move for sure. Baseball is obviously a sport that has never really valued the idea of any sort of time. Actually, that's the part about the sport that most people love, is that there is no time for baseball. However, there has been a systematic problem with the length of the game. And I understand everyone's first immediate reaction to this is that there's no reason that I can't sit down and watch a baseball game for 3 hours. And that most pure-hearted baseball fans will say that they can spend however much time they want watching a baseball game and not care at all how long it takes. And I get that argument. I really do. As someone who loves baseball, I totally get that. However, there is absolutely no reason for a baseball game, for the average baseball game, to take 3 hours or more, when in 1970, the average game took 2.5 hours. We have gone, people don't understand, we have literally destroyed the game with the amount of pauses that pitchers and batters take in between. I do not want to watch a baseball game where the majority of the time it's just the pitcher that's walking around the mound or batter walking out of the batter's box to walk back in. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. Baseball is not doing this to speed up the game. What they're doing is changing the rules so that there is more action in the game, which is inherently speeding up how fast the game goes. And I know that it's marketed as speeding up the game, and I think that was wrong on MLB. We know that they're not good at marketing the sport. What they should have marketed this as is as a way to make there be more plays per game. And that is to be something that every fan, every person that plays the sport, and everyone who's a owner, general manager, whatever, anyone that's part of baseball should want that to be implemented in the game.
Yeah, completely agreed. I'm so glad that you feel that way, because I wasn't trying to get into a heated argument or anything tonight, which I was prepared to do if you were on the other side. And what you brought up about the time of games from the 1970s, and that was a trend really from that time all the way up until about 2010, that games were on average 2.5, 240s, 220s. Like, they were not super long and drawn out as they are now. Like, I feel like the sport of baseball was taking a step back from about 2012-11 to 2022. And now with what we've seen in spring training, with the games being shortened significantly, in my opinion, like, some people are saying, oh, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it's not that long. It's not that big of a deal. If you're a real baseball fan, you can put up with it. That's a load of horse crap. That is a significant amount of time in the game, especially when the 15, 20 minutes you're shaving off are what you said, pitchers just mulling around the mound, batters just walking around adjusting their batting gloves. It was killing the game. The fact that we are going back to what baseball was before excites me, and I've been engulfed with a lot of information for the past week, because that's really all it's been for spring training, and this topic has really dominated the sports world since spring training started, and it's a very polarizing topic. People are on either two sides of the fence. No one really is in the middle, and I think baseball is taking a major win with this move.
Yeah.
The games have been shortened, and this is going to, the word I'm looking for is probably improve the game. They're improving the product that is going on the field.
And what's so ridiculous to me, and this is the part that frustrates me about baseball, there's always a generational gap. The people that love this rule, it's the old head. It's the people that grew up watching baseball in the 60s and 70s and loved how fast the sport was and how much action there was. The issue is that there was a bunch of young people who grew up thinking that 90s baseball was the best thing ever because all the home run records were broken, and there was Bonds, there was McGwire, there was Sosa. That is not the glory age of baseball. The best era of baseball undoubtedly was the 1950s. And then there was a bit of resurgence in the 70s. And since the strike in 93, baseball has just gone on a downward spiral. And everyone that grew up in that time period doesn't understand that. And that's the frustrating thing to be about baseball fan.
Yeah, agreed. And The most infuriating thing too is when they're like, "Oh, you're not a real baseball fan if you don't like this." And it's like, I don't understand. Like, I want to see more baseball action. That's what I want to see. And that's what we're getting with this rule. I don't have to stand there and watch these dudes adjust their jock strap all game. I don't need that. I'm completely fine with this rule. And sure, there are a few kinks that they need to figure out. Like, I saw Karinchak ask for a new ball with 14 seconds left on the pitch clock. And by rule, that should have reset clock back. And the clock didn't get set back, and Karinchak ended up being penalized for it with a ball. Those are things that are fine right now. We're okay with this. This is brand new. And that's why we're going to have a month of spring training baseball so that everyone can get adjusted to this. By the time we get to, I believe the season starts March 29th. By the time we get to March 29th, we'll be all set. We'll be ready to go to get into the season with this new rule, and everyone will be fine with it. Like, I think by October of 2023, we are going to look back and say baseball saved their sport. Baseball changed their trajectory with this rule change.
And what's amazing, I haven't heard one player complain about the new rule changes.
Mm-hmm.
Players that maybe got called out in
Yeah.
like the 9th, but other than that.
Yeah, I think it was the frustration of the idea this could happen in a game. And I totally understand that argument. But I haven't heard a group of players come out and say, we don't like how fast the game is going. We don't feel like we have time to get ready in the batter's box. We don't feel like we have time to get our pitch called to us by the catcher and then to get ready to throw the ball. I've seen more people be happy about this, actually, and say that, look, this is going to be an adjustment, obviously, but this is the way that we grew up playing the sport. And that's the part that I really don't understand. When I played Little League Baseball, and again, this is Little League, nothing like Major League Baseball, we were still able to do this. And I get that as you grow older, you're going to become a much better baseball player. You're going to be able to throw the ball 90 miles per hour. You're going to need a bit more rest in between pitches. I get all that. But at the end of the day, there's no reason to fundamentally change the sport from being able to pitch the ball between 15 seconds as a high schooler to then needing to take a minute to a minute 15 in between pitches. I just don't believe that at all.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Like, and just now thinking about this, there is no way when I played Little League Baseball throughout my entirety of my short baseball career, there is no freaking way that I took 30 seconds in between pitches for an at-bat or when I was pitching. There's just no way. And there's no way anyone else that I played with did it either. The games are, even if you hit a foul ball, you're right back in the box. Like, you might take a second to take a practice swing, maybe, but then you're right back in the box. And to me, they're going to figure out the rhythm with it. And they're going to figure out it's okay when I hit a foul ball, I can take one practice swing, step out, take one, and then I'm right back in. And you're going to have plenty of time. Plenty. And I don't think that this will be an issue. I think people are completely overreacting.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's just, I think people just want to complain, and especially baseball fans. Unfortunately, that's what's ruined the sport more for me than anything else. It hasn't been the shift killing batters. It hasn't been the amount of home runs and strikeouts going up and the amount of other balls being put in play going down. It's the fact that fans just find a way to complain about every single little thing. And it just gets old after a while.
Yep, agreed.
Baseball has been like really resistant to change in the past, so I'm really happy they integrated something that really will change the game moving forward. I do think they do need to tweak like the rules in the later innings, like maybe from the 7th inning on, they need to like adjust, maybe get rid of it altogether in the 9th, just so they could have like an uninterrupted game of sorts, because as we saw, like little bits and pieces, the clock did kind of end some games, and that would kind of be bad. It would kind of be like the ending of the Super Bowl for me if I was one of the teams watching and that shit happened. So I would definitely look to see how it goes this year, and then next year make minor tweaks, but I think overall it'd have a great impact on the game, and it could bring new guys in, because let's be honest, like this generation now is like, it has a really short attention span, and if the games are shorter, more people are gonna tune in.
Right, and like the two sports that are dominating the American sports culture are basketball and football, and those are two of the more fast-paced games that we have. I think baseball is making the right move with it, and honestly, I wouldn't even hate your idea of, hey, maybe after the 8th or maybe only even the 9th, we just take it out, because that fat part of the game, 1 through 7 innings, is sort of like gotten through quickly, and we don't have to sit there and wait for the late innings. And then when we get to the late innings, then everyone can kind of slow down a little bit. And, obviously those are more pressure situations. So I think that players will probably push for that a little.
The other thing too, though, and this is what people are forgetting, the batters do have a timeout, one per at bat. Mm-hmm. So that batter in that 9th inning situation could have used it in that 2-strike, 3-2 count.
Right.
And that would have saved the team from going into a tie, which, again, will never happen in an actual regular season game.
And another thing that this rule will bring sort of back, because I'm not trying to say that manager ejections really diminished at all, but I think we'll see more of them. And I think that people are entertained by that. Like, they love seeing that. And I think with this rule, like, there's some gray area, and a lot of managers and umpires are going to have some heated disagreements with it. And that was part of the game, like we were talking about, back in the old eras, where people loved watching the manager get out of the dugout and freak on the umpire. People loved it. There are some classic manager ejections. I thought that when the MLB implemented the challenge, I thought like we were never going to see manager ejections again. And I was sort of sad about that, but obviously they didn't completely get abolished from the game. But I feel like with this rule, we'll see a little bit more of that. And that's just a small thing that fans will like. And fans in attendance will like. It'll, like we were saying, this is going to bring more people into the game. More of the casual fans will start watching.
I agree with that. However, there's another bigger problem baseball is having that most other fans aren't talking about, and that's their regional broadcast. Their two biggest subsidiaries that were airing games, Bally Sports, which is owned by Diamond, which is the sports broadcast owned by Sinclair Broadcast Company, and Warner Bros., T-Mobile, like it's that big group of that owns HPA and all that. They own AT&T Sportsnets. All those have collapsed. I believe 18 or 20 out of the 30 teams use at least one or both, or one or two of those broadcast companies. I know that the Pirates, Rockies, and I believe Astros use AT&T, and 14 others use Bally Sports. Now that those are gone, we have 17 teams that have no way to broadcast games. And due to the blackouts, if they go on to be owned by Major League Baseball, MLB Network or something like that, there's a chance all those could be blacked out, which will be a huge problem for the growth of baseball.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, that is something that's really flying under the radar. And that doesn't seem to be an issue, other sports, but it's like a huge baseball issue. And I've seen tons of fans complain about that. That's a great point.
You're saying that some teams will not have like local channels and stations covering their team?
So as of right now, yes, Major League Baseball is working on a way that they can air the games. I'm not exactly sure how that would all work. At this point, all that Bally Sports has done is just declare bankruptcy. But as of right now, I think they still have the rights till the end of March, which is right around the start of the regular season, which could be a huge problem. And Warner Bros. Has sort of said that they're not going to be able to air games, but it hasn't become clear if they're officially declaring bankruptcy and what will happen with that. So as of right now, there's just a huge question mark about what will happen. No one really knows. And Major League Baseball can step in and save it and just create their own networks. But like I said before, they've always had blackout restrictions. So for example, I live in Philadelphia. If I were to watch a Phillies game on MLB Network that was airing nationally, I would not be able to watch that because Major League Baseball would block that out. So no one really knows what will happen if that happens.
Yeah, it's sort of a gray area, but it's probably going to be a big headline, once the issue really gets met head on. But they're kind of like waiting on it, which, I mean, like they're definitely discussing and having internal discussions, but nothing's really been released to the public other than that, what Aiden was saying. So it's sort of a gray area.
So the NFL Combine is going on right now, and there's been a big story with one of the projected top five players, Jalen Carter, getting charged with reckless driving and racing. He's out already. He's at the Combine, posted bail. He actually was, when he went to the police station, he was listed as 2 inches taller than he was in like the college database, so maybe that helped his stock. Do you guys think this will be a big deal, and do you think teams will pass on him for this? So
my thought process is if, like the charges right now, I think we're reckless driving and something else. Racing, yes. Those are the charges. I don't think it'll hurt him too much. I don't think he'll be in the number one pick. I still believe he would be in the top 15, top 10. There is a possibility that a more higher charge gets put on him, like even manslaughter could be it. Because, I mean, we had in our town, there was a guy who raced a woman and her daughter. And, well, he wasn't racing them, but he was racing his friends. And then the woman and the daughter ended up dying. And he got manslaughter charges because of that. He got 2. So there is a very big possibility that happens to Jalen Carter also, which obviously we're hoping that doesn't happen because I do believe he's going to be a freak of nature in the NFL. It's going to be, we're going to find out definitely in the next couple of weeks, what the legal process of this whole situation is. And if it's the lesser charges, reckless driving and racing, it probably won't hurt him too much. He'll still be a first round pick. But if it's manslaughter, there's a chance he doesn't get drafted at all.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just have to say, I'm so sorry for the loss that Georgia Bulldogs had to go. Rest in peace to them. What happened to them is super tragic. We can't overstate that or understate that when we're talking about this story. And I feel like that their names are being forgotten because of the fact that Carter's arrest happened. And so I just want to put that out to start. When it comes to Carter, this is an interesting situation because of the fact that he wasn't the direct reason for the accident. It takes multiple people for a tragic situation like this to happen. I understand that there needs to be some sort of legal prosecution to happen because he was a guilty party in this, but he was not the only guilty party. And therefore, I can't say that he should be severely punished. I think that he needs some sort of punishment, but I think he'll still be a first-round draft pick. I don't think that's a serious question at this point. He has so much talent. And like I said, it was not a situation that he is directly the reason for all this happened. But I do think that you need, as an NFL team, to assess that a little bit and say, this could be a risk factor of taking someone that did not make a smart decision in this moment. And I think that a lot of NFL teams do that now, but not all the time. Sometimes it's just a guy made a simple mistake, and as horrible of a mistake as this was, he'll learn from it and move on. There's other guys where this becomes a pattern. And I think as an NFL team, that's a risk that you're going to have to take. And that's something that will be assessed during Carter's combine and the interviews as well.
Yeah, and the NFL, with these types of situations with the college prospects who have sort of I'll put a quote-unquote character issues, the NFL doesn't take them lightly at all. I feel like the NBA sort of glosses over these things a little more than the NFL does, but NFL teams will not take this lightly. And yeah, I'm really hoping that it's for the better for him, just because, like you said, I don't think he was the direct cause of it, and I don't want his career to completely go off the rails because of this.
No, it seemed like a bunch of young people making a really bad decision, and that decision ended up being tragic. And thankfully for them, no one else was involved, because that could have been, as bad as that was, if it's someone that was not directly involved with the bad decisions that they were making,
right?
How much worse this could have been for everyone.
Right, sort of with the Henry Ruggs case, you could have seriously injured a complete innocent bystander.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, he has to be able to learn from this and grow from it, which I believe he will, because something that jarring sort of has to make you adjust something about yourself, So I think that I hope that it doesn't, obviously, but I don't think it will either.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say on this situation because I don't know, I wasn't there, obviously.
Right,
I don't know
tough.
the full details.
Yeah.
He could have, really put them in danger and cost them their life, or maybe he was just there and doing something stupid with them.
Yeah.
But we don't know, and I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think that if it was just a wrong place, wrong time, mixed with a bad decision, then I think he'll still be a first-round pick. But I think if he's not letting on to, how much he was involved, then I don't think many teams at all would even take the risk, in the later rounds with him, because, he play after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know you want to talk about the combine and everything else that's happening, but this reminds me of the situation that's happening in Alabama with Brandon Miller. And I kind of want to touch on that too, because this has been just wild stuff. I don't know if either of you have read about it or not, or seen anything about it. I don't know what your guys' take on it, but to me it's sort of, I'm somewhere in between of Miller being guilty for delivering the gun, and also I don't think in his mind he could rationally say, okay, I'm delivering this gun to my teammate who's going to use it to murder someone. I can't believe that was his thought process. But I also think you can't just deliver a gun when someone asks for it out of the blue and not wonder what's going to happen next.
Well, so to my understanding, do you know the name of the guy who was actually arrested for the murder?
Yeah, it's Darius Miles.
Right. So to my understanding, it was Miles' gun that he left in Brandon Miller's car. And then he just texted Miller, bring it to me. So there's so much gray area with that because Darius Miles could have just said to Brandon Miller, yo, I need you to drop off my gun later that I left in your car, and left it at that. And Miller could have just been like, okay, like that's completely understandable.
So it's not Miller's gun.
Yeah, it was not Miller's
gun.
No,
it was not his gun. Yeah.
The flip side to the story is Miles could have said to Miller, I need my gun because I'm going to kill this woman and I need you to drop it off for me later. And that's why he was so indirect with his text message, because the text message word for word was bring it to me. And Miller did not respond. That was the text message that was sent. There's so much gray area with it. I think I'm on Miller's side. Side.
I will say, though, the reason that all this came out is because Miller's car was hit by gunfire, and then he covered up the story from the police. So that's the whole reason why all this came out, is because during the testimony, clear that he helped cover up some of the investigation, which is why he got in some trouble, but it ended up being pretty clear that he was not directly involved with the situation. But it wasn't clear, it seemed like, to anyone on the Alabama staff or anyone that was part of the university that he was at that place at all when this incident occurred.
Right. And this is so similar to the Carter situation too. Because
and that's the whole thing. No one and this is what Jack, you said. We weren't there. We have no idea what happens. You just have to go by what the police are saying, what everyone that was involved is saying. It's just kids that are given all this publicity, all this encouragement to be great athletes, and it feels like at some point the university at some level needs to watch out for these kids. And the fact that Oates, as the head coach of the program, is saying whatever happens outside the court is not my problem. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What type of statement is that?
Yeah, there's no accountability for it, and that to me is such a red flag for the program as a whole. That's why I will not be picking them to win March Madness. That's a huge reason, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm. So now that I know it wasn't his gun, that kind of answered my question to why he's still playing on the court, because I thought that was really weird. I thought it was his gun, and the investigation was pointing to him, and he was still playing and playing well, as a matter of fact. And I just never saw anything like that before. But there's definitely a lot of gray area. He's definitely not 100% innocent. I think if you cover up something, you have some knowledge of what just happened, whether you knew about before or after. So
yeah, and covering it up in itself is just wrong. Even if it's not, I mean, I believe it is illegal, but even if, it's not an arrestable offense or anything, the covering up is still very shady. And yeah,
I think, to a certain one, I understand you want to protect your teammate at all costs. And that's it's hard when these off-the-court situations happen to a teammate, because your mindset is, I protect this dude on the court, I need to protect him off the court as well. And unfortunately, the legal system does not see it the same way, for obvious reasons. But I think also part of it is it not being explained, hey, you need to protect your teammates, sure, but also to a certain point, you need to look out for yourself too. That's what worries me, is no one was around Miller saying, you need to do the right thing about it. And again, this will sort of slay, like you said, the NBA doesn't always look into the personalities of players. I think Ja Morant's slowly becoming an example of that with every story that's come out about him. There needs to be some sort of person around these athletes holding them accountable. And if it's not the coach, which it should be, number one, but if not the coach, it needs to be a parent. If the parent is not around, it needs to be someone else that's part of the university making sure they're okay, and not just using them for monetary gain and then basically saying whatever happens afterwards isn't my problem.
That's a great point. His coach should have been the one in his ear from the very beginning. Don't cover anything up. Your career is not worth saving Darius Miles for this. Don't cover anything up. Tell the police the full truth to your knowledge. Obviously, he didn't do that. So there was no adult role model figure for him leading him through this. He's a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah, no, he should not be making these decisions on his own.
100%. And like, this is not just like, oh, Darius Miles stole something from a grocery store. He killed someone. There should have been an adult role model leading Brandon Miller through this. It should have been the head coach of the Alabama basketball program, and he completely failed. And his answer in the press conference proved that.
But yeah, you mentioned the Ja Morant thing. One of our friends texted us in a group chat about it earlier, and I'm just reading about it now, and this is like news to me. I'm just kind of shocked reading some of these, punching a teenager, threatening a security guard.
I'm sort of confused about it because I heard the story over the offseason, which was Morant punched the 17-year-old at his house during a pickup game. And now I'm finding out another 17-year-old was threatened by him with a gun at the mall and stuff.
Wait, why are 17-year-olds at his house?
I don't know. I mean, it was like, apparently it was a lot of kids there. Well, not 17-year-old kids, but a bunch of players there, and some were in high school. That's what I think it was. And then the kid was like talking a lot of trash to Morant, apparently, and Morant had enough of it. Then there's this other story I'm hearing with Morant's mom was at Foot Locker, some store, I forget. I'll just say Foot Locker. And she got in an argument with an employee, a 17-year-old employee, and then she called Morant, and he showed up with 9 dudes, and they all flashed their guns at the kid. And then mall security was telling them to leave, and Morant pushed the mall security guard and stuff. And like, so it's all confusing, but it's all bad for him. All of it is bad. And I mean, that's such a character flaw. You cannot allow a 17-year-old kid to get in your head like that. And you 100% can never retaliate with violence on a minor.
So this was supposed to happen this offseason, they're saying?
Yes. Apparently this was...
both incidents?
No, I think the mall incident was a little after.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
What I don't understand about this, and we just talked about Carter and Miller, these are college kids. And I understand Morant's not that much older than them, but he's an NBA player. He now is the person that is looking out for himself. Yeah. Why are you just playing a pickup basketball game with 17-year-olds? Why are you getting so pissed off at them that you're then beating them up? And then why are you going to a mall? And I understand that you feel like, oh, I need to protect my mom and all that. But to pull up with 9 people and then to all flash your guns, and this is, we just talked about the Miles case. Bringing a gun to a situation where there's already a conflict is not the best idea in the world.
Right.
And I don't know why it would go through Morant's head to say, yes, this is exactly what I need to do in this situation.
Right. And like, again, with the role model stuff, like his mom gets into this altercation with a 17-year-old, and she feels the need to threaten a 17-year-old with her son and 9 other dudes. Like, where is the maturity? You are a grown woman. Handle yourself, act your age. I mean, yeah. It's mind-boggling, to be honest with you. Like, these people never interacted with the real world. It makes no sense.
Wasn't his dad also the one that got in the fight with Shannon Sharp?
Yeah.
So like, it's the entitlement of it seems like the entire family almost.
Right. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense.
No,
that was like a rich family too. Like even before like Ja entered the league.
Yeah, he came from money. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's mind blowing to me that there is people younger than Morant who did not have the stable family that Morant had, who can act more mature even though they've been on their own almost longer than he has, and still have the same amount of money and the same amount of basketball pedigree and all that. And it's shocking that this is the story that's coming out about him, because he is such a great basketball player. And that's what I would love to, and that's the whole thing with the majority of the stuff that's been happening. I would love to just focus on the sport aspect of it. But at the end of the day, there's this other stuff that's happening at the societal level, and it's just no one's being held accountable or holding people accountable when an incident's already happened. And I don't want that to happen to Morant. I don't want there to be a situation where it goes from threatening someone to then an incident happening like what happened with Miles. And that's where I think a lot of people, if you're a basketball fan and you've been hearing these multiple stories, your mind starts to wander about where this could all end up.
The bottom line is character matters with athletes. And one of the parallels I'm drawing with this too is with Patrick Mahomes. Like, remember the situation last year when his wife dumped the water on the Ravens fan and all that, and there was just a bunch of stuff happening with Brittany. And
that
Jackson
was Jackson.
Right.
Brittany sprayed the champagne
right.
on the fan.
Yes, I'm wondering what a person like Morant would have done in that situation. It speaks to the character of Mahomes because he obviously sat down his wife and brother and said, you guys need to tone it back a little bit and stay out of the headlines. Instead of retaliating against some random drunk Ravens fan who was just having fun. I know the situations might be a little bit different, but the bottom line is there's never, ever, ever a reason to punch a 17-year-old in the face, and there's never a reason for you to show up and try and intimidate them with lethal weapons. There's no excuse.
It's just crazy how many like bad athlete stories there have been in the last couple of weeks.
I know. It's insane how the Super Bowl ended and now we are getting all these dirty headlines about some certain athletes. Like, it's weird.
I did see that Netflix is like doing a quarterback exclusive like insider look with Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota. Are you guys tuning into that?
Yeah, that will actually be interesting. So I saw that too. I like how they did it, sort of with Mahomes being the cream of the crop, Kirk Cousins being a player where he's not a bad player, but he's not necessarily Patrick Mahomes or anything. And then it's Mariota, who typically has struggled throughout his NFL career. I love that sort of dynamic that they're creating there with the three different scenarios of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is Kirk Cousins really Netflix worthy?
No, I don't think he is, and I don't think Patrick Mahomes' family is too. Definitely won't be watching the Patrick side, but yeah. I will watch the other two.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued with the Mariota side.
That's probably the most intriguing one. Yeah, Kirk Cousins, I mean, the joke about him is that he's just the most bland quarterback in the NFL, and he kind of is. He's one of those guys that always puts up pretty good stats. He will get you to the playoffs. He won't really take you that far. Basically, he's just the better version of Carson Wentz.
I love the memes that are like the like all different quarterbacks.
Yeah,
Cousins, like the Jimmy.
Daniel Jones is the running Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I love that stuff. That stuff is hilarious. But I mean, Kirk Cousins is a guy I'd like to sit and have a beer with, maybe chat, yeah. But I don't know. I don't know if he's necessarily Netflix material.
What I am interested about, I know Cousins is very religious. I know that Mahomes just talked about his religion. I don't know about Mariota, but I know that he comes from a family that is very close. I'm interested to see if they ever talk about the faiths of these guys and how that's helped them, especially with a quarterback like Cousins who is very open about his faith. I'm interested to see if Netflix ever plays around with that at all, because that is a big part of a lot of football players' lives. I mean, a lot of teams do prayers before games, and most football players are religious at some aspect, and whatever religion it is, it's something that most players are willing to talk about. So I would be surprised if Netflix doesn't touch into that a little bit, and I'm interested to see how they play that out.
Moving into the NBA really quickly, Tatum, aside from last night, this is recorded on March 2nd, so the night before they played the Cavs, and he dropped 41 points. But the week or two before that, he really slipped off. Like, he got ejected one of the games out of frustration with the refs. He later took to Twitter and said, "This is what I get for hacking LeBron."
That was a great joke.
Yeah.
That was a great tweet.
But I kind of do notice, like, I think Tatum is a top 5 player in the league. However, unlike the other guys in that list, like, when he slumps, like, he is bad.
Yeah, and the Celtics play style really, really feeds into that because Tatum has the ball in his hands a lot, and he's asked to take a lot of shots, and he's asked to create for a lot of guys. When he is off, like you said, it's bad, and it's very, very noticeable. He's not a guy who can kind of adjust to the flow of the game and sort of do things to help the Celtics win more. Like, the Celtics need his scoring to win. And that's not to say he's not a good defensive player. Like, he is a good defensive player, but they really, really need his scoring. It kind of reminds me of when Embiid had a really poor shooting night against the Grizzlies. But Embiid is great at getting to the free throw line. And this is something NBA fans really fail to notice because they like to refer to guys like Giannis and Embiid as quote-unquote free throw merchants. That's the term that gets used with them a lot. It's just a completely casual term. Getting to the free throw line is an extremely, extremely great way to help yourself when you aren't in a flow. It's a great way to ease your way back in. Embiid against the Grizzlies did that. He shot 7 for 25, but I believe he had 15 free throws. and he had 19 rebounds. He added the assists, and on the defensive end, he put up the stats. He had, I believe, 5 blocks and about 2 or 3 steals. Those aren't things that Tatum does really well. So I think I agree with you. At least for this year, Tatum has been a top 5 player, but I also believe he's under the tier of guys like LeBron, Luka, Giannis, Embiid, Jokic. Like, I believe he is under that because of that. When he's off, it's glaring and it's really detrimental to the Celtics, and he doesn't really do enough to help the team win when he's playing bad.
He doesn't, although I will say that he made the game-winning shot against the Sixers even when he had an off night.
Yeah.
And that's rare for him to happen, and that was something the announcers were saying pretty much the entire game up until that shot, is that he's looked cold. He is the type of guy, though, where he can have an off night and still make the clutch shot. I don't think that he's one of those players that when he's off, he'll take himself completely out of the game, but he certainly makes games closer than if he had dropped 40 on the Sixers, they would have won by like 30.
Yeah.
But even this Cavs game now, he bounced back, scored 41 points, and they only won by 4. So like I 100% with what you guys are saying. Without him playing well, the Celtics cannot go that far. It will be something interesting to look into as the playoffs get closer, because something that a lot of playoff teams do well is they have very deep rosters. Even if you're just relying on 3 or 4 key guys off the bench, that can be enough to take you on a run in the playoffs when most of the time your starters are getting 30 to 30, I would say 35 to 40 minutes a game. This could be something that some of the teams in the East take advantage of. I'm looking at Cleveland and the Knicks specifically, who are playing a little bit better and I feel like have slightly deeper rosters if Tatum isn't playing well. Now, if Tatum is on, no question that the Celtics easily run through both of those teams. But it could be interesting if teams are find a way to slow Tatum down, make him get off his rhythm and take advantage of that. That could lead to the Celtics being knocked out early, which is what happened to them before last year when they finally found a way to get through the better teams in the Eastern Conference to go to the finals.
Yeah, and like that's kind of why I'm leaning towards Milwaukee at the moment in a best of 7 against the Celtics, because Tatum's thing is he doesn't do great against guys who have a lot of length. Milwaukee is just filled with guys who are super, super long and tall and athletic. I mean, just naming the 4 off the top of my head, Holiday, Middleton, Giannis, Brook Lopez, like these are guys that are going to disrupt Tatum a lot. But at the same time, to what you were saying, Tatum is a guy where he can be cold one night and then the very next night he can be extremely hot. Mm-hmm. So, and when Tatum is hot, there isn't really much that can stop him. Like, he is a 3-level scorer and he might be the best scorer in the NBA right now. I mean, he has solidified himself into that class, you know, of elite scorers and guys who can get buckets at ease. But yeah, it's when you have that formula to stop him, when you have that length to stop him, he struggles. But you're also right. Like, he hit that game-winning shot against the Sixers. Like, it's not to say that he can't do it. He probably can.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what happens. As of right now, and again, there's still a while left until the playoffs, like 19 games or something like that, which is more than enough time to change the standing. As of right now, they'd be playing the Heat again, which is who they played last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's a very intriguing matchup because the Heat have the players to slow down Tatum. They gave the Celtics pretty much all they had to offer in that Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics were just able to eke it out because they have a better roster than the Heat. But if Tatum's struggles continue, which I don't think they will because, like you said, he's a very on and off player, but if he has too many off games against a team like the Heat, even early on, that could be enough to give them trouble. Yeah, I wanted to touch on the Lakers with LeBron being hurt now that that's all happened, because I don't think we've been able to touch on it yet.
Yeah, I have a quick point about that. Like, the Lakers, you know, I thought it was going to be extremely difficult for them to climb in the standings. When we talked last, they were behind Portland and Oklahoma City. They have jumped them now, granted by 1.5 games at the most. But gosh, this LeBron injury is so deflating for them. Even though they played well the other night against OKC when it was just Schroeder, AD missed that too. But it's got to be so demoralizing for them in the locker room, at least. Like, they were really gaining some traction, getting hot. And then LeBron James gets hurt for you and he's out indefinitely for 2 weeks. And the clock is ticking on them right now. They need their guys to step up. I'm going to be interested to watch Anthony Davis moving forward when he gets healthy.
Yeah, they're down D'Angelo Russell too because he got an ankle injury on his birthday.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any hope for them to get in the playoffs this year.
This 3-game stretch coming up will be very intriguing without LeBron. You've got the Timberwolves, Warriors, and Grizzlies. 2 of those teams are not that good this season in the Timberwolves and Warriors, but they could still... They're still in the playoff contention, at least in the bubble contention, which is what the Lakers are just trying to get to right now. If you lose both of those games, that really hurts your chances. And then you got the Grizzlies after that, who you already lost to without LeBron. It will be interesting to see how this stretch goes for them. And then even after that, you've got the Knicks, Pelicans, Mavericks later this month. This is not the part of the schedule that you wanted LeBron to get hurt for. And this could derail the Lakers' bubble chances more than they already were getting in, which is already going to be a very slim chance of them making the bubble. Now it might be almost impossible, depending on how these 3 games go.
And again, like you're saying, they have a really tough schedule coming up. LeBron in the lineup just gives them so much more of a chance. And I'm not saying they don't have a chance now, but wow, it dwindles very far. I feel kind of bad for them. I don't like the Lakers. I do feel bad for them because they don't really deserve it. They were playing extremely hard, extremely tough. They were battling through a lot. Like, they've been in the headlines more than any bottom 10 seed that I've ever seen, you know? And that can be a lot on a team, especially when you're losing. Then you start, like I said, they started gaining some traction, winning some games, putting some good basketball together. And then your best player gets hurt. And then Anthony Davis has to miss a game. Granted, Dennis Schroeder led them through that, but how far is he going to be able to lead you through that? Especially when now you have to play 5-seed Golden State, and then you have to play the 2-seed Memphis Grizzlies. Like, it's so tough. They have their work cut out for them, that's for sure. Just for college basketball real quick, Selection Sunday's right around the corner. The conference tournaments are going to start this week. I'm really interested for these conference tournaments. So I'm a North Carolina fan. The ACC has been incredibly weak this year. I'm sort of intrigued on what's going to happen with UNC and Duke because obviously those are 2 blue blood programs and their tournament hopes are sort of hanging in the balance, more so for UNC than Duke. I think Duke has it. I think they'll get an at-large bid. Man, North Carolina really going to have to win the conference tournament, it seems like, to get in, which is not something you hear very often.
Yeah, there is actually already a conference tournament final set. The Atlantic Sun, which always has some interesting teams, usually they're lower seeds, but occasionally a few teams out here have had upsets before. The matchup will be Kennesaw State versus Liberty. Liberty, if you remember, they were a 12 seed. I forget who they beat a couple years back, but they made a decent run. I'm interested to see what happens in this final. I could see whoever wins this at least giving a team a little bit of a chance, tough game, if not winning a possible game. So I think that this will be one to look out for upset purposes. There's a couple other teams that have started their conference championships. I know that the MAC did, which has Toledo, which is a team that a lot of people are picking to cause some upsets. So there's already a couple early conference championships happening right now.
Yeah, and I saw Sunbelt was getting into action. They're not in the championship yet, but I believe they're going to the Final Four soon for their conference. Yeah, I'm interested with the Liberty team. I like Darius McGee. He's averaging, I believe it was 22 or 23. It's 3rd in the entire country. I like them to upset someone early. And yeah, like you said, these conference tournaments are going to be really, really tough. And Toledo, I like them. Man, the MAC is such a tough conference, like top to bottom. They play each other extremely tough. If Toledo does win, I like them upsetting someone early too.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. They're playing Ball State on Friday, so tomorrow. I'm trying to figure out. Ball State's 20 and 10, sorry. So that's already a very tough matchup. Oh, okay, so they're not in conference play yet till next week, but that's going to be like their final regular season game, which could be interesting depending on how that game goes because of the fact that Ball State is 20 and 10. So if you lose to them right before the conference championship, that could cause some drama.
Yeah, right. Because that could really cost them an at-large bid, which if they were to bounce out of the conference tournament, like they're going to be on the bubble and they could knock someone out or they could be the one knocked out. So they really need to tighten up right here and win their conference tournament, which is way easier said than done.
Yeah, I know today the women's A10 tournament started. I go to LaSalle. Unfortunately, they were knocked out by George Mason in a very competitive game. Decent season for them. They finished 17-14. So that's just more of a personal note. But shame that their season, they had a couple of really good seniors who are going to be graduating. So it's going to be a tough rebuild for them. But it is good that they still were competitive this year, and hopefully they can build off that.
Yeah, it's always fun to watch, too, like when your college basketball team is competitive and in a lot of close games, because there's nothing like a March college basketball game that it has a lot on the line and the game is close from start to finish. Like, those are the best games in any sport, in my opinion.
Unfortunately, the men's team is not as good as the women's team. And yeah, so as of right now, this is just another quick personal note. So LaSalle is ranked 12th in their conference standings. So they'll be playing, I believe, I don't know how the A-10 is going to change. So they just added Loyola Chicago this year, which is a team a lot of people are familiar with if you're into college basketball. They've had a couple really nice runs, including the Final Four, like 4 years ago. Or 5 years ago now. So they joined the A-10 from, I believe, the Ohio Valley Conference. Yeah. So that changes to how it was done. Because it used to be the first weekend, or the first day was the last four. So it was 11 versus 14 and 12 versus 13. I don't know how that's going to change. LaSalle is going to be playing Loyola for their last regular season game. So if they win that and Richmond and Davidson lose, LaSalle will jump all the way from 11th to 9th, which could be potentially much nicer for them than if they're at now. Loyola's 3-14 in conference play. So this is pretty much a must-win game for LaSalle to even get a chance of winning at least one game in A-10 play. And I don't really think they'll go much farther than that. But there has been situations where lower-ranking teams have gone on to win their conference championship and then make a little bit of noise in the tournament. So that's what everyone says. You win, or if you get in, you have a chance of winning. So you just have to get in first, but It's not looking too good for them. And honestly, a lot of the other Philly schools just have not been that exciting this season, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm excited for Temple next year. I thought they were going to be better than they were this year, but I do also think that they have a couple guys who could make some noise for them. Like, I know they're losing DeMario Dunn, and I believe Khalif Battle's a junior, so he'll be back. But yeah, it's kind of sad how far the Big Five has fallen off.
Yeah, I was hoping that Temple could at least make it to the NIT this year with their win over Houston, which I believe I talked about on pod before. But then they just really struggled down the stretch. They only won one out of their last 6 games so far. They have 2 more regular season games left. So they could finish 17-14, and if they make some noise in the American Athletic Tournament, maybe they make it to the NIT, but I don't think that's a given as it was when they beat Houston back in January.
Yeah, agreed.
Although Houston's 15-1 in conference play and still 27-2, so that's a team to definitely look out for.
All right, so I think we'll leave it off there. So we'll see you next week, Saturday at 2 p.m. We'll catch you next week.